Alrighty. Some of you will know me, Murry Cave, Principal Scientist here at Gisborne District Council, and if you want to know what I do within that, come and tell me, and I'll try to put that into my job description. Before I came to Tairāwhiti though, I was on the west coast, and by west coast I mean the South Island, the west coast. And my last key role there was I was working with the Pike River Royal Commission parties with respect to what happened down there. And prior to that I had a 4-week job with the Department of Conservation assessing the impacts of mining at Pike River, and 7 years later I finally finished that 4-week job, and then not that long after that we actually had the explosion. So coming here, I wanted to come here to do something positive, but I'm not quite sure if that's really worked. So moving on, I'm looking at the secondary impacts. These have been mentioned by quite a number of the speakers today, so I'm just going to run through some of those in a very, very short summary. And one key thing I need to mention here, which is unique to the Gisborne-Tairāwhiti region, is our geology. And you do have to understand the geology a wee bit to actually come to grips with that. But the geology is really, really simple. You don't need to know much. We only have 2 types of rock. We have porridge, the hill country, and then the other type of rock we have is where the porridges actually come down and form the flats. So there's nothing else fundamentally that you need to worry about from a tsunami scenario or an earthquake scenario. Okay, this is a demonstration of porridge, transitioning from one to the other. This is a very large landslide that occurred in the November storm last year at Whare-Ongonga. And you will see there, well, if you squint, you can see a straight line through the middle there. That is the former railway line between Wairoa and Gisborne. And if you want to get an idea of scale, the main slip there is around about 5 million cubic metres. And my friends at GNS tell me that it was probably the largest weather-caused landslide that we have on record. Typically, features of this event or this size occur in an earthquake and tsunami type scenario. So the type of thing that we're here talking about today. Okay, and you may or may not be able to see, you've got Gisborne City and its peri-urban area around there, and you've got a whole lot of red dots and a whole lot of blue dots. Those are the plotted positions of all the landslides that occurred. The red ones for November storm last year, and the blue ones are all the landslides that occurred in the March storm this year, just in the Gisborne urban area and immediately associated with it. They're just dots, they don't actually tell you the size, but to give you an idea, in grand total there's around about 3,500 landslides that occurred in combination over both of those events. So in the instance you have, when you have an earthquake shaking going on of the extent that's going to generate a tsunami, when it's going to hit the porridge that we have as our geology here, there's going to be a rapid transport of that rock material in our hilly environment down towards the coast. And so that's going to well and truly exacerbate the risks associated with any earthquake and tsunami, because a lot of our roads would fail. And so it won't just be the roads in from the network, the Waiweka Gorge or the Wharearata. It is probably going to be the road between Wainui and Makarori, the roads inland to Tikaraka. So we're going to actually have not just Gisborne City isolated itself, we're going to have multiple communities up the coast that are likely to be isolated. So in a solid rock environment, like on the west coast, probably the impact would be a wee bit less, just because those rocks do actually hold together because they're not made of porridge. Okay, liquefaction. These really summarise the situation we would have here. Through Quake Core last year, we did some what's called CPT tests, which really gives us a good indication of how much like porridge it is under the tar seal. And fundamentally, in a couple of places within the city and out at the Waipoua water treatment plant, there wasn't much going on from a strength point of view down 30 metres. So we would actually have quite significant liquefaction. This is a situation here in Christchurch, and so that little wee mirror or whatever it is survived, and you could at least see into it, sort of in Christchurch. Here we probably wouldn't even see it, it would just be a little wee crater where it disappeared into the ground. And likewise, I don't think it would really help if you had a four-wheel drive. That's not going to get you anywhere. Surface rupture is going to be an issue. Again, associated with liquefaction and lateral spread. Where we have these three rivers, we're going to have that type of spreading of material in towards the middle of the rivers. So our roads may not be particularly drivable, even with a four-wheel drive, even the way I drive. So it's going to be pretty difficult, and walking is probably going to be a really good thing, and it's a good incentive to have an e-bike. Okay, damaged buildings. James really talked about this quite a bit. Some of these photographs are from Christchurch, the other ones are actually from Gisborne from 2007. And fundamentally, there will be a lot of damage to buildings occurring during the earthquake that precedes the tsunami. And the key thing about that is that there will be, like occurred in Christchurch, fatalities purely and simply because of the falling debris, or in some instances in Christchurch, and that will happen here as well, ejected debris that went out and crushed cars and things like that. And I put the top middle one in there just to really highlight the fact that, you know, we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about buildings and things like that, but, you know, there are people involved. And so just to bring that home, the last two on that side are buildings here in Gisborne City, which had sort of canopy failures. We did have more photographs, but most of them are rubbish, so I just chose those two. I can guarantee you that we'll be building a Section 124 notice on those properties. And I think I've really left it at that. I really want to keep it nice and simple, just to bring it all back home at the end, to look at the fact that it's not just a tsunami, it's also the secondary effects where you're going to have landslides, you're going to have damaged buildings, you're going to have flooding, you're going to have ruptured roads. The bridges may not be passable, so I think that was my last slide anyway, but just remember that just brings it all back home. Thank you.